Well, hello everyone. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. You can tell my graphics department has been hard at work, and so we've got a little setup we're going to try a little bit different tonight to see if we can kind of keep me from waving pictures every which way. So if you'd like to get some paper and something to write with or something to draw with, that would certainly be beneficial, be helpful for you tonight. So I'm glad all of you can join me. We're going to be in Judges chapters 13 through 16 tonight. Judges chapter 13 through 16. Jordan is in Granbury tonight preaching, and so let's certainly remember him, that he has a safe trip there and a safe trip back. That church does a Wednesday night thing during the summer where they invite different speakers in, and so Jordan was invited to come and speak tonight. So let's certainly remember him and pray for his safety. And next week he'll be back with you teaching, and he'll take the next 3 weeks as I've taken these now 3 weeks. And so I'm glad we can be together tonight. Judges chapters 13 through 16, Samson. My, what a story. What a story. I've read this story I don't know how many times over the last week, trying to prepare for this. And every time I read it, I see something different, something new. And every time I read it, I am just so amazed at what happens in this story. In chapter 13, we have the announcement of the birth of Samson to his mother. An angel of the Lord comes to his mother and tells his mother about having a child. The father's not present, Manoah's not there at the time. And so she tells her husband Manoah about the angel coming and visiting. He said, you got to be kidding. That really didn't happen. I'm not sure that's the case. I'll tell you what, you go find him and you bring him here. And if he comes back, you let me know. And so, lo and behold, the angel shows back up. In chapter 13, you see that you have the woman speaks and prays that the angel will come back. It's verse 8. It said, then Manoah prayed. The Lord said, "Oh my Lord, let the man of God whom you sent come to us again and teach us what we shall do for the child who'll be born." So Manoah this time prays. But notice he prays, teach us what we shall do with the child. Teach us what we shall do with the child. Here you have the picture. This is a rather weak picture of an angel coming to Samson's mother Manoah. That's what this picture is about. But I'm impressed that Manoah prays to the Lord about tell us how we can raise this child. Tell us what we shall do for him. In fact, the angel of the Lord comes again, and this time Samson's mother runs out to find her husband Manoah, and he comes, and they're going to kill a calf, a goat. They're going to have a feast. That is, they're going to offer something as a meal for the visitor. And so they make a fire on this rock, and so they say, we're going to offer this meal to you. We're going to kill the goat. We're going to welcome you into our house, and just let you know we appreciate this so much. He said, no, the angel said, no, that's not how it's going to happen. No, it's not how it's going to happen. In fact, you turn over in chapter 13, just a little bit further, and it says, verse 19, Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it upon the rock of the Lord, and he did wondrous things. He did wondrous things while Manoah and his wife looked on. Manoah wants to know this guy's name, the angel's name. And verse 18, the angel said, why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful? From what I read, that's a name that can only be applied to God. In fact, Isaiah will talk about Jesus being Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace. So it's possible that this angel that comes is the one that will later be incarnate as Jesus, coming to talk to them. In fact, he will use the language of I am. If you look back just a little bit further in the book, notice verse 11. When he came to the man, he said to him, are you the man who spoke to this woman? And notice, he said, I am. I am. And perhaps that's an indicator. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Personally, I believe that's who comes and talks to them, but I'm not going to try to force that upon anybody. And so here you have the angel that comes, and then the angel departs. The angel departs and goes up in the fire. And Manoah said, "Oh, now what? Now they're going to kill us. Now they're going to kill us." And Samson's mother said, "Well, if that's going to be the case, then we wouldn't be standing here." Notice what it says in verse 23. But the wife said to him, "If the Lord desired to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands, nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have told us such things at this time." In other words, no, he's not going to kill us. No, we don't need to be afraid of this angel. And so you have Samson's mother gives birth to him, and in fact, Samson's name is only mentioned chapter 13, coming down to verse 24 here. That's such an interesting part of the story, that this angel appears to Samson's mother and tells her that she's going to have this child. And so you have him coming from the tribe, Samson comes from the tribe of the Danites. Do you remember the tribe of Dan? They kind of bled into the background of people. They didn't conquer the people, and they became a very idolatrous people. So Samson is coming from a very idolatrous group of people, and a very weak group of people, because they couldn't conquer the people whose land they were to take. And again, they just kind of blended into the land and the people that were in the land where they tried to take them over, where they tried to take their land. And so the Danites are weak, and they're a very idolatrous people. Well, we come to chapter 14, and something interesting happens. Samson now is a little bit older, and he tells his mom and daddy when they go down to Timnah, and he sees a woman among the Philistines. And what he sees among that woman is that she pleases him. That is, he looked at her and he finds her very good looking. And so he tells his mom and daddy, "I want you to go get her for me." His mom and dad just plead, "Please, no, please don't do that. Do you have to take one from the Philistines? Can't you take one from our own tribe, or from the tribe of Israel? Can't you take one of our own tribe?" And he says, "No, you go get her." Well, that sounds a little strange to us. First of all, Samson hasn't even talked to the woman yet. He just sees her. He hadn't talked to her yet. He doesn't know if she can talk or not. Doesn't he know if she has all her teeth or not? He just sees her and he thinks that he wants her because she's good looking. Well, they have to arrange the marriage. And so Manoah goes and he tries to arrange the marriage. And so it says in verse 4, "But his father and mother did not know it was of the Lord." Now, that statement in verse 4, I think maybe the most powerful statement in this whole story. There's so much that happens with the story of Samson that I got to tell you, it just blows my mind. I don't know how y'all feel about it. Samson just does so many things wrong, beginning here. Remember, back in chapter 13, when the angel announces to his mother that he's going to be born, the angel says, "He shall be a Nazirite." That is, it says, verse 4 of chapter 13, "Be careful not to drink wine or any similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head. For the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines." Something else that's interesting here in verses 1 and 2 is, notice there's no cry from Israel at this time. They've been captives of the Philistines now for 40 years. And there's no cry now. But God is still going to send a deliverer. I think with all the complications of everything that goes on with Samson here, an overriding piece of this story is God's abundant grace. And we'll see that as the story unfolds. With all the things that Samson does that are wrong, we see God's abundant grace. And here we see it giving birth, the announcement of the birth to the mother and the father. And we see it now with regard to God sending the deliverer, even when they had not cried out. Well, he was to be a Nazirite. And that is, these were the things that were supposed to take place, which meant he was not supposed to take a wife of a strange land. Well, X that off. Violation number 1 of being a Nazirite. You messed that up. Well, so his mom and dad had gone to talk to the people of Timnah to try to arrange the marriage. And it says in verse 5, so Samson went down with his mother and his father, and they come to the vineyards of Timnah. Now to his surprise, a young lion comes. And what does that young lion try to do? That young lion tries to kill him. Notice it says, it surprised him. To his surprise, a young lion came roaring against him. But notice what it says in verse 6. And the Spirit of the Lord came on him. That statement is mentioned several times in chapters 14, 15, and 16. And I think what you have there is, here is God, the Spirit of God coming on Samson, and Samson now being strengthened by the Spirit of God to perform these phenomenal feats of strength. Later on, we'll see that Samson, I think, is kind of a plain guy. And I think there's indications of that later on in the story. But notice what he does with his lion. It says in verse 6, the Spirit came upon him mightily, and he tore the lion apart as one would tear apart a young goat. Though had nothing in his hands, but he didn't tell his mom and his daddy. Notice in chapter 14, we begin some secrets. First of all, here's God's secret. Verse 4. God's secret is all through this. The parents don't know this. I wonder if it had made a difference to the parents if they had known what was said in verse 4 here. That is, that this was of the Lord, that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For at that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. I wonder if that would have comforted his parents a little bit. That's the first secret. That's God's secret. Here's the second secret, and it's Samson's secret. And he kills the lion. He kills the lion. Well, now in verse 7, he goes down and he talks to the lady. He goes down and talks to this girl that he finds that pleases him. She pleased Samson well. And after that, he returns to go get her. And by the way, while he turned to go get her, he passed by the carcass of the lion. He passed by the carcass of the lion, and there was some honey, a bunch of bees, a beehive in the lion, and there was a bunch of honey there. And he stuck his hand in there and got the honey. Violation number 2. You're not supposed to touch anything that's dead or unclean. He touched a dead animal, not supposed to touch a dead body. So he's taking a woman he has no right to. Now he's violated the vow again by touching an unclean body. He takes the honey, gives to his parents, didn't tell the parents where it comes from. Another secret that Samson has. Well, he goes to get her. And so in verse 10, his father went down to the woman, and Samson gave a feast for the young men. That's what the young men used to do. Here's something that's interesting about this period of time, and it bleeds into the New Testament. You see it with Joseph and Mary. That is, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Joseph, who is to be her husband. Notice, we're going to notice throughout chapter 14 and into 15, she's called his wife. The word wife can be used one of 3 different ways. It can be used with regard to someone in the future, but not yet literally his wife. It can be a reference to someone that is present, literally his wife, or it can be a reference to something in the past. Here is the first. She's not really his wife. Here's a big word. She's betrothed to him. And that's a little bit more than our engagements. What it meant was Samson had to go off and prepare a place, and then he comes back and gets her, and they have a big party. Well, who shows up? Well, 30 people show up. These aren't his friends. These are wedding goers. These are party goers. These are men who are supplied on the scene. And so he makes a riddle to them. And they make this kind of wager for 30 garments of clothes, 30 changes of clothing. And so he poses this riddle to these guys within the 7 days that they're going to have this party that's going on here. Verse 12, Samson said, "Let me pose a riddle to you. If you can correctly solve and explain to me within the 7 days of the feast, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. But if cannot, then you give it to me." Here's the riddle. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Well, these guys cannot solve the riddle. And after 3 days, they couldn't solve the riddle, so they go now to Samson's wife and say, please tell us. And she says, I don't know more than y'all do. He hadn't told me a thing. He hadn't told me anything about it. Why are you coming to me? And they said, I tell you what, these are 30 guys telling Samson's proposed wife, if you don't tell us, we're going to come burn your house down, and we're going to burn you down, and we're going to destroy everything you have. And so Samson, she comes before Samson and says, look, I have not explained it to my mother or my father, so should I explain it to you? She wept on him, and the 7 days while the feast lasted, it happened on the 7th day. So she's been pestering him for 7 days to find out, what's this riddle about? These guys, they can't get it. And finally, he tells her and he explains it to her. And then she tells the men of the city. The men of the city go tell Samson, we know what the riddle means. What is sweeter than honey and stronger than a lion? And Samson knows where they got it. He knows they didn't come up with it. And then he said, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. It might indicate that Samson's not quite ready to be married, to call his future wife his heifer. But here he says, if you hadn't forced my wife to do this, you would not have solved the riddle. And notice it says again, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and went down to Ascalon and killed 30 of their men, took their garments, came back and gave it to those sorry rascals who forced Samson's future wife to tell the riddle. Well, Samson's father thinks this is over. I'm sorry, the woman that Samson's going to marry, her father thinks this is over. Samson's out of the picture. So he gives his daughter to Samson's best man. Samson's enraged at this point. And after he settles down, he comes back and he tells his future father-in-law, I've come now to get my wife. He said, there's a problem here. I thought this was over and I've already given her to the best man. I've got another daughter here that's younger, and hey, she's really pretty too. Why don't you take her? Well, Samson is not having that. He's upset. So these Philistine guys, who were these 30 party goers, these 30 wedding planners, party guys, he's mad at them. And so he goes and he catches 30 foxes. I tell you, there's a lot of vivid scenes in this I'd like to see happen. I would like to have seen him catch 30 foxes. Wouldn't you like to have seen that? I mean, I'd like to have seen him kill that lion with his bare hands. I'm not sure I'd have gotten the thrill out of getting the honey out of it. That kind of grosses me out. I like my honey fresh out of the beehive, not out of the cavity of the lion. I don't know about you. But here he's going to go catch these 30 foxes, and then he's going to tie their tails together. And he's going to put a lantern in the tails, and now he's going to send them through the fields of the Philistines, and it's going to burn everything down. He said, this is how you're going to treat me? I'm going to burn everything down. Well, the Philistines figure out what Samson's done, and they go and they burn his future wife, who no longer is going to be his wife. They burn her house down, they burn her up, and she loses her life in the deal. But notice what he does. He takes these foxes' tails and he ties them together. And when he ties them together, he just sends them through the field. Can't you just see that happening? These foxes all tied together, running through the fields with a fire on their tail. They had more than one reason to run, didn't they? Well, they're catching that field of fire, and now then you have these men that come and burn the house down. Well, Samson isn't happy about that. And so he says in verse 7 of chapter 15, since you will do a thing like this, I will surely take revenge on you. After that, I will cease. You know what you did to me? I'm going to do it to you. Except I'm bigger and badder than you are. You took this woman who was going to be my wife, and you burned her up and her house up, and now then you're going to get the same thing. And he does that, and then he goes away. Well, the Philistines went up and they go get the people from Judah. Now, Judah used to be a strong, strong tribe when they first came into the land. Remember, they were the strongest tribe. But now, them being under Philistine bondage, they've weakened. And so they come to get Samson. They come to arrest him. And he says, hey, what's up with you? Why are you coming to get me? They say, well, we got to come get you, because if we don't, we're going to be in trouble. And notice they bring 3,000 men to do that. They bring 3,000 men with them to get Samson. And he says, okay, I'll let you take me, but don't give me into their hand. Don't kill me. He says, verse 13, they spoke to him, no, but we will tie you securely and deliver you into the hand, but we surely will not kill you. They bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. Well, when they get to the right place, the Philistines come up shouting against them. I mean, they've come out, the men of Judah now have Samson all tied up. He's given himself to them. He didn't have to do that. He gave himself to them. He said, don't kill me. They said, well, we're going to give you to the Philistines. And now the Philistines rush out to get him. What happens? The Spirit of the Lord comes upon him. The mighty Spirit of the Lord comes upon him. And when the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him, he takes a fresh jawbone of a donkey up. Problem. We got another problem. What's the problem? This is the fresh jawbone of a donkey. This is not some old, dried up jawbone, which would not have mattered because it still would have been decaying flesh. But now then, he takes that jawbone, here you see the jawbone here, and he is going to clean their clock. I mean, he is going to wipe them out. He slays 1,000 men with that jawbone. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him with the lion. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him with these 30 men that were here. And the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him now, and he's strengthened. And as a result of that, he slays 1,000 of them. I got another picture here of a jawbone that you might like to draw. Here you see a jawbone here. I don't know if I can get it there. There you see a jawbone. That's kind of a picture of a jawbone. And it says here it was a fresh jawbone of a donkey. So this donkey was fresh dead. He wasn't old dead, he was fresh dead. And so, being fresh dead, he takes this and then, when he gets done fighting them, he throws the jawbone away. He's got no more use for it. And he goes to a place called Ramoth Lehi, and lo and behold, he's thirsty. And he tells the Lord he's thirsty. He said, I come out here to die. And the Lord causes the ground to open up, and he gets a drink of water. And Samson judges Israel for 20 years. However, something else happens now in the life of Samson. Samson goes down to Gaza, and there he goes to a woman he shouldn't be going to. That's not his wife. And so the Gazites, they're told that Samson's there, and so they kind of surround the place where Samson's at, and they're laying in wait. Well, Samson gets up about midnight, and he goes and tears the gate off the city. Now, the gate would have been the place of protection. It would have been their safety, where they would have been safe and secure behind it. And Samson tears that gate. And it's not like a gate on my fence. This is a big old gate. I mean, this thing is humongous. It is one heavy dude. And Samson carries that thing. And notice it says he takes it on his shoulders to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. And he's in Gaza. And he goes to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. I'm told, I could be wrong, that is about a 40-mile journey with a 2,000-mile ascending incline, climb up. In other words, he's not just walking on flat ground 30 yards away and throwing it away. He traveled about 40 miles up a mountain carrying this gate. Now, why did he do that? I think he's kind of telling these people, and he's telling the Judites, he's telling all the others here, this is not going to happen. Well, now we come to the part of the story that everybody knows. We come to the part of the story that everybody knows. This is the part of the story that is so famous to us with Samson. And he comes and meets Delilah. Delilah probably was a Philistine. It says she's in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The lords of the Philistines came up to her. So you got no woman problem. He keeps having these women that get in his way here. He has the woman from Timnah. He has this woman that he comes into beginning here in chapter 16, and now he has Delilah. And so she's going to play with him because they promised to give her some money. That they promised to give her 1,100 pieces of silver each. There are 5 kings of the Philistines. Each were going to give her 1,100 pieces of silver. Well, that would be several $1 million in today's money. Probably well over $25 million in today's money that they were going to give this woman. And so she's going to get something out of this. And notice all the way through here it says that Samson loved her. But never in the story does it say that Delilah loved him. You ever notice that? Well, notice what happens first of all. It says verse 6, so Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength lies, and with what you may be bound to afflict you. Time out. Shouldn't the light bulb go on here with Samson? Samson's not stupid. Samson just thinks he's bulletproof. And he thinks nobody's going to get me. Part of the Nazarite vow that we saw in chapter 13 was no one was to cut, not a razor was to cut his hair. That was the sign. His hair wasn't his strength. His hair was the sign of his vow. As long as he had that hair, the sign of his vow, when God mightily came up on him, he was strengthened and he performed these superhuman things. And so she wants to know what makes you so strong. That's why I said a while ago, I don't think that Samson is a guy that looks like Hercules or a Captain America. If he looked like Hercules or Captain America, then wouldn't they know where his strength came from? I mean, if he had big bulging biceps here, wouldn't they have known where his strength came from then? I mean, if he'd have been looking like Hercules all built up and muscled up and everything, wouldn't they have known? But they don't know where his strength comes from. So I think that kind of tells us that, you know, he kind of is an ordinary looking sort of fella with long hair. And so she says, hey, what can we do? Tell us what we can do to hurt you. Tell us what we can do to capture you. Tell us what we can do to defeat you. Don't you think that should have been a sign for him to run the other way? But he doesn't, because he thinks he's bulletproof. So Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other. Well, guess what the Philistines do? They rush upon him with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried. They tie him up. Then he breaks their bowstrings. So the secret of the strength was not known. I've got a picture of some of these things. They're here. Let's see. I got a picture of the bowstrings. Can you draw that? The picture of the bowstrings right here? Bowstrings right here. Can you draw that? Draw a picture of the bowstrings. Well, that's not the only thing. So Delilah says, and she's kind of getting on to him here, look, you've mocked me. I asked you, you didn't tell me the truth. Why did you lie to me? You mocked me. You mocked me. You told me these lies. Now, please tell me what you may be bound with. Time out. If he didn't get it before, he should have got it now. But he thinks he's bulletproof. And so, okay, he's going to play with her again. So he said, if they bind me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall be weak and like any other man. So we see the ropes. Going to bind him with new ropes. Well, they bind him with new ropes, and then they come in, and he breaks the ropes. And so she's really upset with him now. She says, verse 13, until now you've mocked me and told me lies. Tell me what you may be bound with. And he said to her, you weave the 7 locks of my head into the web of a loom. Well, here's our weaving of the locks into the web of the loom there. They're going to take his hair. His hair must have been really, really long. And they're going to take his hair, his long hair. I mean, it hadn't been cut since he was born. I mean, it hadn't even been trimmed because the razor wouldn't touch it. And so they take his hair, and while he's asleep, they do this. While he's asleep, they do that. I'm thinking, I think I would have woke up. I think I would have felt somebody messing with me. And so it says, verse 14, but he woke. So he's asleep while they're doing this. He's asleep while they're doing this. He's asleep. He must be one sound sleeper. You got somebody messing with your head. I mean, think about that. You got somebody messing with your head, and now then they're pulling on your hair. Or now then they're wrapping you up with ropes. Maybe some are too young to have tried to play this trick. Maybe some of the older ones have tried this. You ever taken some whipped cream and put it on a friend's nose while he was sleeping? And just kind of tickle it, and him reach up there and smear the stuff all over his face? He doesn't know because he's asleep. He just scratches his nose because you're tickling it. Well, that's a little bit more severe than what putting whipped cream on somebody's nose is going to do. And so she says, verse 15, she said to him, how can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? And I just want to say, excuse me? Whose heart is not with who here? Who's the one that keeps trying to capture the other so he can be killed? Whose heart is not with who here? She's got no reason to complain, but she's using him. He likes her. He likes her a lot. He likes her very strongly. And so she's breaking him down. Just like the woman in Timnah. She pestered him and pestered him and pestered him until he weakened, and finally in weakness, he told the woman in Timnah the answer to the riddle. And now then finally in weakness, he gives in and tells her the secret to his strength. And he tells her that his hair cannot be cut because if his hair is cut, if his head is shaved, that's the sign of his vow, his strength will be gone. Well, once again, when he's asleep, they come in and they cut his hair. Again, I don't know how you sleep through that. Now, I can go to sleep while someone's cutting my hair because it's pretty relaxing. But I've never been asleep while somebody's cutting my hair and not wake up because somebody's doing it. In fact, I don't know that I've ever tried to have my hair cut while I am asleep, but nonetheless, you can see that's something that would bother you. I mean, they're shaving his head. They're not just trimming it. They're not just trimming around his ears. They're going to shave his head. Well, they come in a hooting and a hollering, wake you up, and this time they bind him. And it says in verse 20, so he woke from his sleep and said, I will go out as before at other times and shake myself free. You see what I said a while ago? He thinks he's bulletproof. But he did not know the Lord had departed him. Those may be the saddest words in his whole story. He did not know the Lord had departed him. That is such a heartbreaking thing. In fact, the Lord probably departed from him before now because of all the things he broke with his Nazarite vow, but this is the last thing that can be broken. This is the sign of his covenant. This is the sign of his vow. And now that sign is gone and his strength is gone, God is not at this point going to mightily come upon him again. And they take him as a prisoner. And this time, when they take him as a prisoner, they put him in stocks like this. And do you remember what they did to him? They gouged out his eyes. I highly doubt that they put him to sleep, anesthetized him to do that. You know, if you were anesthetized because your eyes were diseased and therefore you had to lose your eyes, when you woke up, it'd still be pretty painful. But now they take him, he is weakened. God's left him, and they gouge out his eyes. And when they do that, now then what he's doing is he is just working He's now working as a grinder. Now they've got him just doing the most basic, dirtiest of jobs. And so then he's just a grinder. But what's happening while he's doing that? What's kind of happening behind the scenes here while he's doing that? Oh, his hair begins to grow out again. And when his hair begins to grow out again, his strength begins to come back. Well, all the Philistines are inside their temple having a big party one day, and they want Samson to come so he can be their show. They want, here's this mighty Samson who's slain these 1,000 people with a jawbone of a donkey, and he's carried these big gates. Now let's come and let's just see how mighty he is. Now they've come, they're going to mock him. They're going to parade him in his weakened state, and they're before them, and they're having one drunken feast, and they're going to make fun of him. But they don't realize his hair is growing out and his strength is coming back. So he tells the young boy, "Hey, buddy, this is what I need for you to do. I need for you to take me outside and place me between the two pillars. So I can put my hands out on each one." And it says again, the strength of the Lord. He says in verse 28, "Then Samson called to the Lord, O Lord God, remember me, strengthen me, I pray, just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my two eyes." Do you not see something else in this whole story with Samson? He's a very revengeful fellow. You don't do Samson bad and he's not going to get you back. Notice what he says here, that I may take vengeance on the Philistines for my two eyes. He doesn't say, "God, please strengthen me, and I'm so sorry I have been disobedient. I'm so sorry I have violated my vow. I'm so sorry I have made such dumb, ignorant decisions along the way. I have not made the good decisions. I've not treated you right. I've not been faithful to you like I ought to be." But no, he says, "Lord, please strengthen me, remember me, so I can have vengeance on them, so I want to exact the vengeance because they gouged out my eyes. I want these guys to die." Again, you see the revenge of Samson all the way through here. He still doesn't realize that he's not bulletproof. Well, the Lord strengthens him, and he says, "Let me die with the Philistines." And this time he pushed the columns aside, he pushed those two pillars aside, and they cave in. The whole thing comes crashing down. And Samson dies in the mix. Samson dies as well. Well, his brothers and his father, they come down, they get him, and they take him back home to have him buried. Samson did not rid the land of the Philistines. He was the beginning of eliminating the Philistines from the land. David will eliminate them from the land. David will come, and David will eventually eliminate the Philistines from the land. But until David does that, they are going to be a thorn in their side. They are going to be a problem with them coming and going all the time. Why does all this happen? Because they didn't drive all the people out of the land when they came in. Can you imagine what it would have been like for these people? I mean, they're up and they're down these judging period of times. And by the way, have you noticed that with all the judges we're moving now, that they're all becoming more immoral, bad all the time? They're declining in their morality, and they're becoming more wicked. They're becoming more like the people of the land. In fact, you're going to find in the next study it says they're king of the land, and they did what they wanted. They did that which was right in their own eyes. Some lessons I think that we can take home from this that I think are really valuable for us. God can use bad situations and still fulfill His purpose. Let's think about some other occasions that's happened. Pharaoh. God's purpose was fulfilled. Pharaoh was bad. Judas was bad, and God fulfilled His purpose. Samson does some things that are pretty wicked. He disobeys God, but God is going to use him. That was verse 4, chapter 14. God's going to use him to accomplish his purpose still. I think something else that we see in Samson is, even though God was mightily strengthening him, we're still free to choose. God mightily strengthening Samson did not take away his freedom to choose. You get to choose, I get to choose. We all get to choose what we're going to do. But notice, Samson did not choose the consequences. He did not choose the consequences. I think something else that's interesting is we use our strength for God's work, not for revenge. Something else I think is important is the deeper we allow ourselves to be influenced by the glamour and pull of sin, the more blind we become. This story tells us that Samson was spiritually blind long before his eyes were gouged out. Samson was blind long before he became blind. Something else I think that's important is sin binds us, then it blinds us. Sin binds us, then it blinds us. Then it slowly and without fail grinds us away. The truth is, sin will take us further than we ever intended to go, will hold us longer than we ever intended to stay. Sin is bad stuff. We all need to be reminded of that. From young to old, we need to remember that. Sin binds, then it blinds. That's not some of the time. That's not kind of like it is. That is plumb how it is, and it happens that way every time. There's not a story in the Bible that we can go over where that is not true. Samson is just a story tonight. Adam and Eve. David, it blinded. The study that Jordan's doing on Thursday nights with David. David was blinded by some of the things he did. And we can be too. We will be. That sin just blinds. I think something else is Samson also demonstrates that he was shallow and vengeful and pouted when things didn't go his way. And the most telling of that is, I have the right to get even. But that was also the mindset of the Philistines too. That's also the mindset of the world. I have the right to get even. I'm reminded of the words of Paul, vengeance belongs to God. What would have happened if Samson would have said, well, Lord, I'm putting this in your hands? And maybe Samson did, and that's why he took the lives of the people, because verse 4 of chapter 14 was, this was all of God. And then I think another one is, despite all of Samson's weaknesses, it seems in some way he did turn back to God before he died. Maybe it was just out of vengeance, but notice it said again, he returned and prayed to God, please remember me and strengthen me. Now, what he was praying for was not right, but notice he at least returns in that way to the Lord. And then I think maybe the greatest lesson we learn from all this is, and this is something I mentioned earlier in the lesson tonight, Samson's story is really a story of grace all the way through. All the way through. It may not seem that way to us, but I think the lesson we learn is that God would rather forgive than judge. In the final analysis, and this is the most amazing thing, if we turn to Hebrews chapter 11 again, verse 32, God saw Samson as a man of faith. I think that's evidenced by the fact he's listed among all those who are in that hall of faith. And so when we read through that list of names that are recorded, we find that no one in that hall of faith was perfect. Samson was the strongest man to ever live, but it was God who gave him the strength. And more importantly, Samson did let himself be used by God. In fact, God could have used him without making him the strongest man. But he was willing to meet us right where we are and take us where he wants us if we will let him. He's willing to meet us right where we are and take us where he wants us if we're willing to let him. Samson did allow God to use him to kill the Philistines. That's back in chapter 14 again. Look at verse 4. That really is important to nail down here. It says, but his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord, that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. God using Samson to get the Philistines. But we find Samson in chapter 11 of Hebrews, of these men who were great men of faith. You know, I don't know how you feel about that, young or old, how you feel about that. But I got to tell you, when I read that, and as we studied Jephthah, and as we saw Barak from the study that Jordan did with you on Deborah. There are a lot of things I don't understand. I can't figure out about all that. But I can get this. God figured it out. And God knew something about their heart. He knew something about the strength of their faith. And at last, with all the imperfections, with all the failures, with all the disobedience that was there was something about Samson's life and his faith that God saw that included him in that great hall of faith. And I think, therefore, to receive the promise of God that came when Christ died on the cross, when his blood goes back before the cross and goes forward from the cross. Samson was a man of faith at last. I may not understand it, but it does give me a great deal of comfort to know that as weak as I am and as many problems as I have, and as much as I struggle with sin at times in my life, that if I just keep my heart right with God, if I just keep my heart set on God, keep my heart going with God, keep my heart in the direction of God, and be a person of faith, then maybe God will put me in that hall of faith. One last thing I think that's important, especially for our older kids, and maybe for our young adults who haven't been married yet. I think we see the value of choosing the right mate. Man, we see the folly of Solomon choosing the wrong woman. Solomon kept choosing the wrong woman. These women he went after were good looking, and that's not a wrong thing. Every man that has a wife or girlfriend thinks they are beautiful and good looking. But there's got to be something more to them than just the fact they want to chop your head off. If I were to go to sleep tonight and Jody said, before you go to sleep, how can I chop your head off? I might not go to sleep tonight. And while she may sometimes have justification for feeling that way and maybe thinking about acting that way, nonetheless, I think I would stay awake that night. It's important, people, that we try to find the right one to marry. Just as I close, I'll tell you, marrying Jody was not my doing. Marrying Jody was God's doing. God knew I needed her. He knew I needed her strength. He knew I needed her faith, because when we were dating in our early life, in our early married life, I was not very strong. I was weak as well. And God brought her into my life because he knew I needed her. I can just put verse 4 there and says, this is of God because I need you to help me save Ricky. And she has done a mighty good job of trying to help me. That's the kind of woman we want to try to find in our life. And we have a lot of mothers that are like that in this church. We have a lot of women who are wives and mothers like that in this church. I hope this study's been good for you. It's a fascinating study to me. So much I can't figure out in this about it, but I tell you, it's a powerful study for us. And I hope it's good for you. And I hope my new graphics design has been helpful to you. And maybe you got something out of that. Hope you were able to keep up with drawing something along with me as we went. Love you. I love every one of you. And I look forward to seeing those who can come Sunday at 9 o'clock. I'll be preaching at 9. Jordan will be preaching at 11. I really look forward to hearing him. I can't wait to see him Sunday. I can't wait for him to get back from Granbury safely. And let's remember Holly and the babies while he's gone. And I love all of you. And hope you stay safe. Hope God keeps us all well. And so we'll see you next time. And I hope you have